After another beatdown by the Chicago Cubs, should the Cardinals start preparing for life as a seller, or are they still looking to buy? This is Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafford, and I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Follow us on X at JD Sports Radio and at LO_Cardinals on YouTube, as well as TikTok, Instagram. This is the show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans of baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB. That'll get you $20 off your first purchase. So before we get into all the trade chatter, the St. Louis Cardinals took another butt whooping on Thursday on a day of celebration in America, known for fireworks, and the Chicago Cubs absolutely kicked the hell out of the Cardinals in every way you can, and they brought all the fireworks you could ever want. 8 home runs hit by the Cubs. 8. 6 of them coming off of Mikolas, who we knew would eventually have another one of these type of games. It happens every year. Every year. It's not really a question of if, but when. When is that really, really, really bad Miles Mikolas game going to take place? We saw it in Boston at the beginning of this season, and here in Chicago, he gets beaten like a punching bag to the tune of 8 runs on 10 hits, 6 home runs, and appear to be trying out to become a home run derby pitcher at the All-Star game in Atlanta instead of a capable major league pitcher trying to help his team reach the playoffs for the first time since 2022. It was awful. Seiya Suzuki, Pete Crow Armstrong got the barrage going with back-to-back solo shots in the first. Michael Busch and Carson Kelly said, hey, that looked fun. Maybe we should try that too. So they did it back-to-back in the second inning. By the third inning, the Cubs are running to home plate to try and get an at-bat against Mikolas before he gets pulled. Even the outs were getting hit hard. PCA and Bush launched their second home runs of the day in the third, and the rout was on. It was 7-0, and Cubs are just laughing at this point. My wife is in the other room, and I just kept announcing them out loud. She's in the other room watching her Reds play the Phillies. I'm in the other room watching the Cardinals and the Cubs. And I just keep yelling, another home run, 3-0, another home run, 4-0. I just kept the countdown going. And it's not, what I do is I try to make the best out of everything. I really do. And I know it's not funny to watch your team get their heads kicked in on national TV. Again, game was on Apple. The Boston game was on ESPN, which Mikolas started too. So maybe he shouldn't get these starts anymore. Maybe go a bullpen game or do something different, because he sucks in these big national TV games. And I know some fans were asking, why is Ollie leaving Miles in? And the simple answer is using up your bullpen on a day that clearly wasn't going your way just seems like a waste of resources, doesn't it? Now, if this were a younger guy, if this was, like Saturday starter Matthew Liberatore or Michael McGreevy, someone you wish you were watching pitch instead of Mikolas, somebody who's got a future with this organization, then he probably would have yanked him. He would have been like, this is not great for their mentality and their, confidence moving forward. But it's Mikolas, so it's a veteran. He knows the drill. Sometimes you got to wear it and help your team through the suffering by staying out there on the mound and eating up some innings. So for that, I do commend Miles Mikolas for gutting it out for 6 innings and, doing his best to get through as much as he could, through more pitches than he had all season in one game in this particular one, which is not normal when you're getting shelled like that early on. But he stayed out there and he did it for his team. So I commend him for that. Sacrificial lamb, basically. But he put himself there. He's got nobody to blame but himself. Most of the pitches, not all of them, but most of them that got clobbered into the bleachers were pitches that he failed to execute on. It wasn't that, it was a bad pitch to call or something like that. He was just leaving stuff over the plate. Missed his spots, caught too much of the plate. And when you throw 92 and you don't have a lot of movement, that's what big leaguers are going to do to you. Pete Crow Armstrong, for whatever reason, knows exactly what you're doing, Miles Mikolas. If you're going to throw a curveball, think the exact opposite. Do something else, because He knows exactly what you're doing. He destroyed you again on Friday. Mikolas tied the modern era MLB record with 6 home runs allowed. He's just the 6th player to do it in the last 85 years, joining Tim Wakefield and R.A. Dickey, both knuckleballers, FYI. Then there's James Shields, Michael Blazek, and Matt Swarmer. But the home runs kept coming even after Mikolas was long gone. John Keane got 2 spoonfuls of the Cubby Pop as well, served up by Dansby Swanson and again by Michael Busch, who ended the day with 3 long balls, 8 home runs. Franchise record for the Cubs. Also the most home runs the Cardinals have ever given up in a single game. So awful all around. Mikolas outside of the Boston game wasn't having a terrible season. Went 4-2, 3.51 ERA over his last 10 starts, but now, or for his first 10 starts, I should say, my bad. But 0-4 with a mind-numbing 7.75 ERA over his last 7 starts. Plenty of home runs hit off him. Yesterday didn't help. And Mikolas said all the right things after the game. He said it's really disappointing, 4th of July, Chicago, and I was really excited for this start, and I really wanted it to go well, and it didn't. I've got to live with that and deal with that. The Cubs are a good team. You have to play good type baseball, and you can't throw pitches down the middle at all. No, you can't. I mean, you get some of these guys who come up and they can't throw strikes. Mikolas can't stop throwing it over the heart of the plate. It's such a bizarre twist on what's going on in the world of pitching these days, where some of these guys have no idea where it's going. Mikolas doesn't know how to keep it from going down the middle. He can't stop. But he also, said some nice things about the team himself. He says, we're a really strong team too. I let us down today. I didn't do my part today, and we suffered for that. Hopefully we'll get out there and give them hell. We've got 2 games left in the series. It's not over. We can win 2 days in a row and come out on top on this road trip and not think much of it. Get back to St. Louis, get back to business, which is the mindset that you have to have. He's not wrong. You take another game like this, you take like these last 4, with Pittsburgh and the Cubs, and you just go, look, we're better than this. We are. We've shown you that we are better than this over the first few months of the season. This is not us. We're in a rut. We got to get out of it, and we can't just live in the past and look at it and go, oh, what was me? We were so bad yesterday. Nobody cares anymore. Move on, and you're going to have to do better today. Look, we all know Miles Mikolas really has no business being in a rotation for a team that has playoff aspirations. He doesn't, but the Cardinals have made their bed and are forced to lay in it for this final season. He won't be here next year. So everybody that is, like DFA, I'm get him out of here, probably not going to happen. I just don't, with the way the Cardinals approach the season, they're not going to just eat the remainder of his contract and get nothing for it. They'd rather see if he can do better than what we've seen than just release him. Does it do the Cardinals any good to flip-flop him with Steven Matz and put Steven Matz in the rotation every 5th day instead of Mikolas and put Mikolas in the bullpen? Probably not. It probably doesn't make that big of a difference. I would be shocked. It doesn't feel like something they'd do if they were to make any drastic moves at this point leading into the All-Star break. But we'll see how serious they are about competing over the last month before this trade deadline gets us at the end of July. John Mozeliak did have some interesting things to say about what might transpire, which gives some fans a shimmer of hope that maybe they will do something. We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Cardinals. We've all been there logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets. Big concert guy. Love music. Got a guitar hanging right over here. I love going to concerts, but concert tickets can be kind of tough, right? You're waiting forever. They go on sale only to lose your spot for a show that you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories. Put your phones down, by the way, during the concerts. Watch the show. Enjoy the show. But it should be doing that. You should be enjoying not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where our friends at Gametime come into play, making getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Tired of endless scrolling to find the best deal? Gametime's zone deals. Pick the best seats in the section for you. Wondering what your view is going to be like, whether or not you're going to see the right part of the stage that you want to be on. App shows you a panoramic seat view, so there are no surprises. And the price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off. Thanks again for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. Leave your comments on YouTube as well as on X. Anytime you want feedback, always welcome and encouraged. Obviously had a couple days off there for the 4th of July festivities. I hope you had a good one despite what happened with the Cardinals. I hope you were able to make the best out of your 4th of July and not let it bring you down too much. But I know it feels like the Cardinals are in a very dark place right now after getting their lunch handed to them on Thursday, and they've lost 4 in a row. And honestly, just not looking like a playoff caliber team over the past 4 games. I mean, it's how quick things can change, man. You know, you're in Cleveland, and the Cardinals hadn't played well before they get to Cleveland. Then all of a sudden, they look normal again. They look like the guys that we've seen for most of the year, and they do really, really well. They sweep Cleveland in Cleveland, and then they run into the Pirates, who were as hot as anybody in baseball. Got shut out yesterday by the Seattle Mariners. I thought it was the Marlins, but Mariners. Seattle shut them down. Brian, woo, man, he's good. But yeah, they run into them, and the Pirates have this incredible series, and the Cardinals don't play well at all. So they get swept there, and you knew things were going to be dangerous coming into Chicago. Chicago's got all the hype going. 4th of July weekend, they're feeling great about themselves, and they came out and did exactly what I thought they were going to do, and that is just beat the snot out of Miles Mikolas and the Cardinals. It's exactly what I thought was going to happen. But even though it happened, the reality is that the Cardinals are still 1 game back in the NL wildcard. Okay, this is not just because of this rut that they're in at this moment, or had been kind of for the last couple of weeks. They're still there. They're still right there, which is amazing. They got 2 more games in Chicago. Then they're home for 6 against the Nationals and the Braves, who have been 2 of the most disappointing teams in the league this year. Braves mostly due to injuries. They just cannot stay healthy. The Nationals, a very young team that for whatever reason have just not taken that next step outside of James Wood, who's been incredible. So grabbing at least 1 game in Chicago, that's imperative. And then if you can win 4 of 6 during that homestand before the All-Star break, you're not in the worst spot possible. Like, it's okay if you win 5 of your next 5 of your next 8. Like, that's kind of what I'm hoping for. That's like what I'm shooting for right now for the Cardinals. And it'll beg the question if they are still in it, if they can pull this off and still be in it as they get down to the deadline here. Would ownership be willing to actually add to the roster, be willing to add some payroll to help make a push? And John Mozeliak spoke with Derek Gould from STLtoday.com and St. Louis Post-Dispatch and said, revenue is part of it. We knew this year would be a little bit of a challenge. Nothing has changed in that regard. I do think ownership, if they saw we were in a spot and it made sense to do something, I think they'd support it. That's good news. That's good news. It's not like they've just shut things down or go like, we're not adding anything. You're either going to figure it out with these guys or you're not. He also said, I do feel like when you look at where we are that week leading up, the 72 hours leading up to the trade deadline, that may affect how we make our decisions. Ultimately, I feel like if we just use today as a point in time, we have been able to create a lot of opportunity for the guys we wanted to see play. And then we've also had some consistent starting pitching. We've had a lot of churn in the bullpen. It's been consistent and effective. And I agree with all of that. I feel like Ali and management have done a pretty good job of working through guys in the bullpen. They continued to try to find those certain pieces that would fit and that they could move forward with. And they just keep looking for that one right-handed pitcher. I don't know if John King is the answer anymore. I feel like you need a different lefty in there. But they kept trying. They had the same main guys at the back end, but they kept, switching out those last guys on the roster and stuff to see if they could finally get somebody to click. But if the Cardinals do decide to add, what kind of names are we looking at? Where do you think they'll direct their focus if they want to add some guys? Most people think it's going to be pitching. I think they need a right-handed hitting bat that can actually clobber left-handers. But when you scour the league, there's not a lot of those guys out there that are just available. The guys that are already hitting left-handers, those teams are keeping those guys. It's just not like there's a bunch out there. So a lot of people think that it would be additions to either the bullpen or even the starting rotation. My guy Thomas Gilvain at RedwoodRants.com came up with 5 different under-the-radar trade scenarios. I'm going to link his article in the description so you guys can check it out in full. But here's the names he's been thinking. Seth Lugo from the Kansas City Royals, a guy that Thomas and myself both wanted them to sign as a free agent a couple years ago. Loved the metrics, loved where he was going with his game. Thought that this would be the window to keep him, and then you would move on from him. He's been great in Kansas City, but he is now 35 years old. And I think at this point, you wanted him before this. You didn't want him at the end of this contract. So younger arms is who we want to watch now, don't we? Like, aren't we more concerned about getting younger? Like, we don't want to sign a 35-year-old who might be at the end of his rope and getting worse and regressing here soon. We want to see guys like McGreevy and Matthews and Tacoba Roby. We want to see what they can do instead of another veteran. So, again, if they are serious about adding and winning, I think having a Sonny Gray, Matthew Liberatore, and Seth Lugo 3-man rotation is much better than having Mikolas, Fetty, or Palante in there. But I just don't know if it makes the most sense. And I also think that there are going to be some other teams that'll probably be after Seth Lugo as well. Kenley Jansen of the Angels. This guy continues to get the job done at age 37. Not the guy he used to be. Doesn't throw as hard. He's not that kind of closer anymore, but has had a respectable year with the Angels. I'm more than positive that the Angels are willing to shop him to get something for him at the deadline if they're out of it. I mean, they've still been kind of hanging around in the American League. He's someone who else is gonna help drive the market value of a guy like Ryan Helsley. So we want him to continue to be good. Getting another guy to go with Helsley and Maton wouldn't suck if the Cardinals are adding. He also, Thomas brings up Gregory Soto, who I've been a fan of since he was with Detroit. Like, I think that dude is straight nasty. And that is somebody I think the Cardinals should target this offseason for sure. Would love to see him in Cardinal red at some point in his career. I think he is filthy. And I know he's got trouble throwing strikes sometimes, but I don't know. He's naughty, dude. So I would love to see him. Another name he brings up is former Cardinal Harrison Bader. As I mentioned, right-handed bat, can play the outfield. We've had Barrero. You've had Hampson. Those guys aren't the answer, and you know that if you're looking to compete for a playoff spot. I thought Bader was somebody they should have looked at this offseason, but he got a chance to start in Minnesota, so you can't blame him for going there. $6.5 million, I think, is what he got for this 1-year deal. Been in left field mostly for them because they got Buxton in center, but we know that he can play center field if needed. He's only hitting 227 against lefties, though, and that's really where the Cardinals need some help. As cool as it would be to have Darth Bader back in our lineup, I'm not sure how much of an upgrade that is. But if it doesn't cost much, why not? It's better than Garrett Hampson. I don't need to see him anymore. The other name that feels very Cardinal-like that he brings up, which has been brought up in a couple of spots, Merrill Kelly from the Diamondbacks, who feels very Cardinal-like. Like if there's a pitcher out there, Merrill Kelly sounds like a Cardinal. He just sounds like he's somebody that they would just make a bid for, and he would be a good fit. Again, for the playoff push, though, I think there are going to be more teams that want him, so that would essentially push him out of the Cardinals' trade range, just price-wise, because they're not going to give up anything major to acquire somebody for this year. They're just not. Someone will end up overpaying for most of these guys, so it's going to be difficult for the Cardinals to get their hands on any of them, in my opinion. I feel like you got to lower the bar. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be all that exciting, unfortunately. But the fact that they are willing to add, if they can find some pieces at a reasonable price, at least that's something. If the Cardinals do decide to be sellers, which I think they should be, then that's a whole different story. So let's talk about the selling side of things for the Cardinals coming up next on Locked On Cardinals. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product information to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you're going to find exactly what you need. It's going to get delivered fast to you, coast to coast. And if you need help with an order, something isn't quite right, or you just simply have a question about something that's going on, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person and not, waste time punching buttons into a phone, which I despise. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program is awesome. It offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line. You get free shipping, which is great, and discounts on every single order. Thousands of skilled professionals, they're already taking advantage. What are you waiting for? Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Thank you again for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. So the Cardinals, if they decide to be sellers, and like I said, I feel like they need to be. I feel like they can be one of those teams where they're selling but also could add something, add in a certain spot, but sell in a certain spot as well to get the most out of what you have on your roster. Because we're not just thinking about this year. Okay. I think you could all agree that this year, this team, as fun as it's been and solid as they have been for the most part, it's not a World Series caliber team. It would take a couple of big moves to get them to that level. I don't think they're willing to do that this year. They haven't shown any signs of that, something that they want to do. But of course, they would like to get into the playoffs and make a push. They've always said, if you can get in, you got a chance. And I feel like the Cardinals, at this point, they still have a chance. Obviously, they got to be much better in the month of July than they were in June. But they've got a lot of guys that I think other teams are going to want. You mentioned the pitching staff that's got some, 5 different dudes that are going to be free agents at the end of the year. Mikolas, Eric Fetty, Steven Matz, Ryan Helsley, and Phil Maton. Of those 5, I would think that the appeal of Ryan Helsley and what he's done in the past and the fact that he throws 101, even though he hasn't been nearly as good as he was last year, I still feel like that's an attractive piece for teams. Like that's somebody, even if he's not coming in to be a closer for a team, having that dude in a 7th or 8th inning to team up with maybe a team that's already got a closer in place and a setup guy in place, and they just want another arm. I feel like he would make sense. He isn't likely to get you the haul that you were hoping for. After coming off winning the NL Reliever of the Year last year, you were hoping he'd be doing the same stuff as he did last year and that he'd be worth a whole lot at the deadline, kind of like Tanner Scott was last year when the Marlins shipped him to San Diego. That's not going to be the case. Like we've watched enough of Ryan Helsley so far this year. We know that teams are seeing that too and are like, well, he kind of gets hit around a bit. And yeah, he's got the saves and he throws hard, but I don't know. People are hitting 400 plus against him on his fastball. Do we really trust this? So not going to get you what you really, really wanted. But it also depends on what other relievers are out there and what people use to trade for a guy like a Kenley Jansen. If he gets expensive, Helsley's price is going to get more and more expensive too. It's just market value. Phil Maton obviously has been a very, very surprisiprisingly good relief pitcher for them this year. I don't think anybody expected a ton from him. We thought he'd be serviceable, right? But a 1.91 ERA with 17 holds, 4th most in the National League, above and beyond what I thought Phil Maton was going to do for you. He's been very, very good this year. So I think certainly has some value. Steven Matz being a capable left-handed reliever and starter, definitely some value there as well. And he's been healthy this year, which has been great. Sadly, the Eric Fetty trade value, that has plummeted massively from last year. It's hard to believe that the Cardinals gave up Tommy Edman to acquire him, considering how disappointing he's been. Most of us weren't thrilled with the trade last year. I remember when it happened and they got Fetty and they got Pham. Edman hadn't played for the Cardinals yet, and you were able to get 2 players to fill some needs that the roster needed last year. And if you were trying to move payroll and that was the goal there, you succeeded, but it didn't work. It didn't work. Tommy Edman goes on to win a ring with the Dodgers. It'd be awesome for them, and he's still very, very good for them. It didn't work. It is a trade that you say now, looking at it, that the Cardinals didn't win. They just didn't. It just sucks when you think about what you gave up, because everybody loved Tommy and you thought he was going to be a solid player and he can do so many things and play second and short and switch hitter and whatever. Center field doesn't matter anymore, right? But I'm sure there'll still be some takers for Eric Fetty. There will be somebody who's like, well, like, we could do this. Like, look at his numbers in this way and that way and talk themselves into it. And he's got a couple more starts here to boost his value, but the return is not going to be what the Cardinals are hoping he'd be worth either. And then you got Mikolas, got a no trade clause, and why would anyone give up much to get him, even if he wanted to be traded? I mean, you trade Mikolas and he says, yeah, I'm cool with that. What are you going to get? A player to be named later that maybe ends up being a lottery ticket of some guy? Maybe. So people saying, trade him. Why aren't they get rid of him? Who wants him? Who wants him? And then you've got, position players. There's Nolan Arenado, who doesn't seem like he's unhappy. Obviously, he hasn't been happy the last few weeks with the way the Cardinals have been playing, but as a whole this season, it looks like he's had a really good time. And I think Nolan Arenado has been a lot better than people give him credit for. The defense is still there. And I still think he's a very solid right-handed bat. He fits in a lineup. If he were to get traded, if he were to go to a team like the Yankees or the Dodgers, if somebody wanted him, he would slide right into like their sixth spot in their lineup. He doesn't have to bear all the pressure of being one of the main guys for one of those teams, which might be something he's really good at. But would he be willing to go? Is he somebody who's ready to make a move during the middle of the season? I don't know. That's why I thought this offseason, it was kind of if he was going to get traded, if you didn't get it done in the offseason, if you'd have to wait to the next offseason to see if he would be willing to be moved again, because he just doesn't seem like somebody who just wants to pick up in the middle of life of a season and move on. But chance to win a ring, be hard to pass up, I guess. Would someone like a Joel Pozo be worth something to someone? Lars Nootbaar, as weird as it would be to try to, to unload Lars Nootbaar, outside of that first 2 months of the season, it hasn't been great, and it's been rough, and he's lost his leadoff spot and he keeps sliding down the order. He was awesome for those first few months, but it has gone away. I would love to see it get back to where it was, because in theory, he's a perfect leadoff guy, but it just, it's fizzled out so far this year. Injuries obviously are starting to take a toll. They all need a break. Let's be honest. The injuries have mounted on the Cardinals. They were very, very healthy for April and May, and then things really kind of hit the fan, if you will, in June. So it's been tough. So maybe it's just some rest will do these guys some good. But I don't know. That's what I'm thinking about at the trade deadline right now. Obviously, we got a few weeks before it hits, so things will obviously change for good or worse. We'll find out. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on X at @LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio, TikTok and Instagram at Locked On Cardinals. Like, subscribe on YouTube. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason. Let's have a better day than Thursday. Let's hope for that when they take on the Cubs. Hopefully Libby has a nice day at Wrigley Field. You're the best fans of baseball for a reason. We'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.